Hello there, and thank you for joining my channel once again. In this tutorial, it's going to be something a little bit different. I'm going to share with you three different tips and tricks that I use to try to make more durable flies. And I think that's a good thing. We all want our flies to last as long as possible when we're on the water. And so the first technique I'm going to show you is how I use, what I use for peacock herl bodies. And you've seen me use it many a times in my videos, but in case someone hasn't seen it yet. Now what I'll do when I'm doing peacock herls, once I tie it in and I'm ready to wrap it forward for the body. Now a lot of people will just take the herl, as you know, and just wrap it like so until they form their body, and then tie off with 2 to 3 wraps. And what I'll do, instead of just wrapping it forward, I'll form a loop like you're making a dubbin loop. Wrap back and then wrap forward to where you want to tie off. Then I'll grab the herl and the thread together and hackle pliers, and then spin it up like so. Then wrap that guy forward. And also, before I wrap it, I generally put a little bit of head smear glue there underneath, so we'll just wrap that forward for just an example here. Say that's where we want to tie off. And also, instead of just tying off with like 1 or 2 wraps, even 3 like that, and then snipping it and calling it quits there, what I'll do is wrap it that way, then also fold it back and make 2 to 3 wraps back before I trim. And I just find that locks your material in, makes it much more durable that way, and then I'll trim. Then I'll do my whip finish as I normally would, but I'm going to just throw in a couple turn whip finish here, because this is just an example here, what I'm doing for you here. Then I would snip that off, cement it, and it would be a done deal. And that's the method I use for my herl bodies. And that can be used on many different flies, different situations. Okay, the next example I'm going to show you is tying off tinsel. So I'm just going to hook the thread on the hook here. Snip that off, and we'll wrap back. Now, just say for example we're doing a body of, I don't know, say a muddler minnow. And we got our tinsel ready here. And tie that in. And I always trim my tinsel to a point before I tie it in, makes it a little easier. Now, just for example here, we'll tie this guy in. And we'll say I'm wrapping it back first. I always wrap back and then forward, so we'll wrap this guy back, then we'll come forward. One wrap right in front of the next until I get to where I want to tie off. And then what I'll do is I'll come up around with 2 or 3 snug wraps. Instead of just ending it there and coming in and trimming the tinsel. And doing it that way can have a tendency of the tinsel pulling out on you at times. So what I'll do is make a couple more wraps for it, then I'll fold the tinsel back and lock that in, just like so. And that way that tinsel's in there and it's definitely not coming out. And also, when I'm doing tinsel bodies, I'll put a little coat of UV resin most of the time over top and cure it to make it even more durable. So I'll just whip finish that off. That's the method I use for tying off tinsel. And that can be used for any kind of streamer body, or even if it's just a rib on a streamer. When you go to tie that tinsel off, just remember to fold it back and then wrap 2 to 3 wraps, and I trap it in there. I just simply call it, I guess you call it the trap and wrap method. That's what I call it. So the last one I'm going to show you here is when you're tying parachute flies. A little trick I use for when I wrap the hackle on them. So I'll tie the thread on there. Now I'll tie in a wing post. I've got a little bit of poly yarn here. I'm just going to tie that in. Just for an example here. Okay, we'll tie that down. I'll trim off the excess there. Now I'll trim that all, wrap that all the way down so it doesn't get in the way. Now I'll post this wing here. Okay, I'm gonna go up the wing like so, and then work back down. Okay, now I have a hackle here to tie in on the for the post. Now I have the barbel stripped off the bottom here, and I'm going to tie that stem right up the post. Okay, so we'll wrap back up the post again, just like so here. Okay, then we'll come back down. Alrighty. Yeah, I'm just going to trim that little hackle stem out. Okay, now one thing I'll do for durability when I'm doing parachutes, you can use head cement, but I use UV resin. And what I'll do is take some and always go around the post, those thread wraps there, before I wrap my hackle. Then I'll take my hackle pliers here, and we'll begin to wrap this like you normally would on a parachute. We'll start at the top and work our way down here, just like so. Okay, then I'm going to cut my thread and come underneath. Whoops, slipped out on me there, just bear with me, folks. Okay, a couple more wraps. Okay, now I'm going to come underneath that hackle with my thread, 2 to 3 wraps to tie this guy off. And I'll come in and snip that tip out of there. Okay, and then what I would normally do is lift the hackles up, and I would add a little more dubbing if I was going to add more dubbing, and wrap in front. Then I take my whip finisher, whip finish that guy off like so. These are just some examples to show you how to make a more durable fly. And then we know that I have that UV resin under that hackle, so once you take your light and hit that and cure that resin, that'll lock the hackle fibers to that post, and they're definitely not going to go anywhere. They'll last much longer that way. And even if you just use head cement, once the head cement dries and hardens, it'll make it much more durable. And there we have it, and that's how I do my parachute posts to make them more durable. So anyhow, that's just three examples I wanted to show you of how to make a more durable fly. The peacock herl body, the method I use for that. A tinsel body, like if you're just tying a full tinsel body on a muddler or a Mickey fin, a bucktail streamer, you can use that. The trap wrap method, fold it back, lock it in, or any rib that you're wrapping forward on a streamer. Anytime you tie down tinsel, I recommend using that method. It'll make it much more durable, it'll last longer. So anyway, I hope those 3 tips will help you out, and you can use those, and I think you'll find your flies will stay together much longer that way. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I thank you for watching. And if you'd like to consider subscribing, I'd appreciate that a great deal. And until next time, everyone, happy tying out there. I'll see you all again soon, and so long for now, folks.